Well, hey, Trish, thanks for joining me today to have this conversation. To play date or not to play date, that is the question. But before we get started, I think it's important for us to share with those that are listening that we are not coming at this as experts who have all the answers. We're coming at this as two working moms trying to figure out life with kids at home.
Yes, truly, everyday life. And I would say that was a really great little legal disclaimer for us, to a little CYA before we get started, that we aren't the experts. We're just joining an everyday conversation of real struggle.
Hashtag mom life, hashtag we're not experts. That said, as we go along, we would love to hear from all of you, those that are listening, the way you are processing how you're making these decisions. So that said, let's get right to it. To play date or not to play date, that is the question. And Trish, what is your answer?
Well, it depends. And it was a struggle to even get to it depends, as I shared in the blog post. We recently had a couple of text messages when everything was starting to open up, of friends of my kids and their families saying, who's ready? Who's ready? Anybody ready for a play date? And at first I was just quick to be like, yes, 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 take my kids. In fact, send yours here, then they cancel each other out. But I quickly had to, that was a moment that then quickly followed with, whoa, but hold on now. And all of the what ifs that followed. But we did, my first reaction was, my kids need some social interaction. Unrestricted play. They really do. And so it got me thinking that we need to have this conversation. We need to go through the process of deciding, and then how do we decide? And by the way, the we's for us is not, 1 or 2. The we's for us is like 4, because I have a co-parent, the kid's dad, and then I also have a significant other who has to be part of this conversation because he has a daughter who we've been staying in place with. And then, he also has a co-parent. And so this decision alone that I got really excited about doesn't just impact our small crew. It impacts our whole blended crew. So we had to go through quite a process, a decision-making process. And I'll share just quickly, some of those decision-making criteria was what families, who, we were thinking about, we knew for sure we weren't going to go out in public spaces. We knew for sure that, it wasn't going to be going back to the gym. But what we did end up deciding, and I'll tell you what kind of got us there, is we decided on one family. And one family that we trusted, that we've known intimately for many years. They used to be, I've just moved to a new space, which is also part of my decision making. But one family, they lived next door, and essentially they were like family to us for a long time. I felt safe that my kids could go there. They could play. Both of them could go. So I didn't have to decide on 2 separate homes and spaces for play dates. But they could go and they could play. But we had to go, I had to then go and talk to my co-parent and test and see how he felt about this. And I had to go and talk to my SO to see how he felt about that. All to come to a decision of finally, while the kids are like vibrating over here, because, they knew that the question had been out there. But we ended up saying yes. We ended up saying yes under this very precise situation, if you will.
So that said, you guys picked a family, you agreed on a family because you knew them really well, they're really close to you, you kind of knew what was going on, and so that was mitigating maybe some of the risks, the health risks. The question I have is, what happens next? How do you reassess that?
Yeah.
And do you have to go back, presumably you'd have to go back all the way through all of the multilateral conversations you had with your co-parent, with your SO, with your SO's co-parent. So right now it's one family, they get to connect, not in a socially distancing way, I'm gathering. They get to just play like they play with each other.
Yes,
Does that
absolutely. I
create
mean,
any anxiety for you?
you know, that's a really good question. And, you know, for me to make a decision that the kids get to go play, it was a decision that, one, there was no way I was going to be able to enforce, or did I want to expect another family to be policing 6 feet apart, you know, the social distancing of the kids. My want and my emotional want for the kids was unrestricted play. Let them play as they would as kids, because I think in my mind, it's what they absolutely need right now, for their own social and emotional well-being. But you asked another question, how will we reconsider this? And I will tell you, though, that in our blended family, it was just my kids that were allowed to have the play date. On the other side of the blended family with my SO, his daughters, they're still saying no play date. She's here with us and part of our family and being able to play, but that was a split blended family decision that we're honoring, and supporting. But if the time comes, when it will, and when the time comes to say, okay, maybe there's another friend that's really pushing my 11-year-old daughter, to maybe come and connect and play in another way, we will have to go through that process all over again. And we'll think about what's happening externally. We'll have to think about the family that made the ask. We'll have to think about where they're going to play, all of it. And then again, every single layer, co-parent, SO, his co-parent, we have to think about everybody in this situation. So that's going to make me not probably consider anything else for quite some time. This one works. It works well. It's a good fallback, and we're comfortable with it.
Can you define quite some time?
Absolutely not. That's when Trish uses words that sounded good, but has absolutely no backing to them. Because I can't. I mean, it's just every day is varying out there, and everybody has different opinions. You know, I get a phone call, today saying, oh, I went to the doctor today and the doctor said, oh, we're overthinking this and it's fine. And so now this person, and, there's some days I want to believe that too, but I have so many responsibilities. I have my kids, my SO and others, not to mention, just greater responsibilities, even in the work that we do. But, so I don't have a time limit. I think I assess every single day based on kind of what we're seeing out in the world, and emotionally how we're feeling too. That does count. But what about you? You've got two spunky girls at home, and both are very, like their mama, strong and social.
Yep, the girls are 10 and 11, so close to Simone's age, a little older than Ellison. Without question, their social emotional well-being has come into play. I mean, the kids before all of this were super active. Like, we had left for spring break, and for spring break, we rented a house up in Flagstaff with two other families, folks that we camp with on the regular. They played the whole weekend because it snowed and rained the whole time. They're in gymnastics, and they're used to being at the gym for 9 hours a day. They take piano one-on-one with their teacher, and for them not to have these social outlets is a real struggle, both from a mental perspective, developing their friendships, and physical perspective, because they're really active kids. But the answer to our questions is no, not yet, in terms of play dates. And that's been an evolving sort of thing. We kind of started probably not. We've moved to no, not yet over time, because we actually had two situations where we let the kids interact. One was Olivia, my 10-year-old, who was without question super social. She ran into a friend from the gym here in the neighborhood, and she wanted to go riding bikes. And it was back before it got so hellishly hot. So we let her go and ride around the neighborhood with this kid. And my husband found himself constantly policing her. You're getting too close. You're getting too close to one another. So we had to reel that back in. And then she asked if they could go play tennis. I was like, okay, but you need to make sure you're playing tennis, you're on opposite sides. That's how far away you need to stay. Didn't really work so well. So nope. And then Easter Sunday, we had some friends over to enjoy a mimosa and Easter egg hunt. And my kids, 10 and 11, her mobile kids anyway, are 5 and 7, 5 and 8. And it started great. We were enjoying our mimosas, and then my friend and I found each other like policing our kids. And so we went from kind of like you, it depends, to not yet. And it went to not yet because the way we're thinking is the health and safety of our kids, just like you, the risk management, social, emotional, but we can't police our kids at this point. And on top of that, there are very few people that I think are as anal retentive, as conservative in terms of health and safety as us. So it's not yet. That may change. And Lord knows I'm anxious for the kids to get back to things. But that's where we are for now.
And what about your timeline? I mean, how do you've got I know you've talked before that you do have kind of a stick in the ground about a timeline, at least where then you will evaluate, but nothing is going to change until.
Correct. So, and I would say that my husband and I have had lots of conversations about this. And fortunately, we have a bilateral as opposed to multilateral way of evaluating things. But we both agreed June 1st is when we will evaluate it again. And part of it is because the state is lifting its restrictions. And we want to see what happens to the numbers with the restrictions being loosened. And if the numbers go up, then we persist. If the numbers go down in spite of that, then we consider, and we probably move back into the space you're in, which is it depends. I'm gonna be honest with you. I am desperate to get my kids back into the gym. I mean, desperate, because neither one of the girls are doing great with virtual practice. They do it, they don't dig it. Hannah's doing great with virtual piano. Olivia, I think a lot like your little guy, Ellison, requires that physical back and forth social emotional stuff. And I'm desperate to get him back out into the world. I'm also hesitant.
Right. Well, it's ironic. Literally, before we started this conversation, I had gotten a text message from another family who Simone does gymnastics with, who said, "Gym's opening. Are you going to send your daughter back to gymnastics next week?" And my answer was, "Not next week." And, it's those spaces, it's those collective spaces that I kind of like you. I just want to see in these next few weeks what's going to happen out there. That where now that's a little bit outside of my comfort zone for now. So we're camps, these types of things. So play date, yes, both the kids can go to one place. And my kids, is a good point. I have a 6-year-old and 11-year-old. So your girls kind of are their own built-in play date. And I know does not come without days where they have to be in separate rooms all day long.
Or where Wade and I are not having to wear the stripes of referees.
Right. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. I can too, even with the kids. But a lot of times when they are playing, it's more Simone as a caretaker, right? As a mini me, a little mama. She's helping him, with some of his schoolwork. She's reading to him. She's playing with him. But when she's playing with him, she's teaching him how to play the board games. And so, she gets, rightly so, she needs to tap out of that sometimes too. So she's off on her own. And when she's off on her own, I am the play date for Ellison as a 6-year-old. I can't tell you how many Nerf wars I have had in this house and outside the house since COVID has started. I mean, I am a Nerf war genius now.
I can tell you how many Nerf wars have gone on behind you while we've been in meetings.
This is true.
So the bottom line is that you and I are not super far apart in terms of the decision making. We both value the social, emotional well-being and physical well-being of our kids. we're both also a little cautious about the risks, particularly since kids being biologically hardwired to get close to one another have a hard time staying apart. But there's a whole other set of people, like, so there's me that's no, not yet. There's you that's it depends. And then there's another group of people that are like, let me have my kids tuck and roll so mommy can have some alone time, because
they don't even slow down. Open the door.
Open the door. Do you have any of those folks in your life?
I do, actually. Yeah, I do. And they've actually been that way. Those who I can reflect on that are that way have actually been that way the entire time of COVID. And from even from kids to adults, but that even they still kind of went around, continued to have play dates, never really stopped. You know, we're a little extra cautious about cleaning their house, as they said, and, you know, washing their hands, but that they still, you know, continued on. And even now it's just increasing. You know, gymnastics are opening, you know, all these different things, and now you can go places. So absolutely.
Yeah. I do.
And some of them, ironically, sorry, I mean, but some of them, ironically, are healthcare professionals. So it's the spectrum, right? These are the professionals that are on the front lines. They go every single day, see what's happening, understand it, but come home and are still really okay with being on that side of the spectrum. So, you know, COVID's really showing you, you know, different varying personalities. Some people who are usually really conservative, I think this may have challenged their own social and emotional, like, I'm just resistant, I need to stay social. And some that are not usually conservative went completely the other way, which is my co-parent in the beginning of this. He was like, lock it down, not going anywhere. Do you need me to get you a mask? The kids won't go to the grocery stores. And this, if you know my co-parent, and if you've even watched our other blog, he is that's usually me. And he was way on the other side of it. So interesting what people are like these days.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned, you know, the people that are on the front lines. You and I do live in a space where we have the luxury of being able to even consider these choices, right? We both are able to work effectively from home, even with Nerf wars in the background, or me muting myself so I can referee an argument between two tweenish girls.
Right.
So we have that luxury. We have the luxury of space. I know you're in a new space, which has got reasonably good square footage, but you don't have a backyard. You don't have your own pool. You've got a community pool that presumably is opening soon.
Presumably, but not yet.
We have a place where all four of us can kind of retreat from one another in our house and find a corner where we can have a minute. We have a pool now that it's hot, but others don't have that luxury, and I think it's really important to talk about that. But I too have some of those folks that are like, yo man, I'm just going to keep on keeping on. And that includes my sister, who is also a nurse, and she's been having play dates on the regular, and has recently just had a baby. And I am desperate, absolutely desperate to get my hands on that kid. So in terms of the most important play date for me to want to facilitate, it's the play date between my nephews, my newest niece, and my kids. Well, and frankly, me. I just want to insert myself into that play date. But I'm hesitant. So my sister reached out to me this week, and she was like, now that everything's opening up, how about you guys come down this weekend? And I was like, I'm going to have to kick the can and consider it around June 1st. And she probably was like, well, she's cool, but she probably was thinking with her eyes rolled all the way back up into her head, okay, old lady, you just keep hiding in your little shelter over there, and you let me know when you're going to loosen things up. So judgment is something that's happened and is happening. Let there be no doubt. She's my sister. I judge her too. I'm kind-ish, but we judge each other. Has that happened in your world where people are judging your decisions or you're judging theirs?
Well, I think it's a natural first reaction, right? Because this is your and it's so sensitive right now. So yeah, but I've judged in order to say, okay, what's my response to this? I can say wholeheartedly, my parents judge and love you, mom and dad, but I posted my blog and she said, hey, but you didn't say what what the grandparents have been trying to tell you the whole time, which is no, never, never, ever. Just stay put. No interactions, no going anywhere, put a mask. I mean, just absolutely. And it's right for them, right? Because of, the age that they're at, some of their concerns with their health. But, the judgment, I think, is a first, as long as and it's natural. As long as it's followed by then, okay, hold on. This is a time where, right, everybody's decision-making is the right one.
I think that's totally true. And I think it's human nature to judge. I think it's what we do because we're seeking validation. And if you're not doing what I'm doing, then either I'm wrong or you're wrong. And I think in normal times, judgment exists. I think this situation, managing the pandemic, managing when and how and under what circumstances to allow our kids to get together, kind of amplifies it. And I'm finding myself having to remind myself that it is about kindness and empathy and giving people the space to look at their lives, think about the social emotional needs of their kids, depending on their kids' age, the space that they have, their risk tolerance and assessment of the risk, and kind of put that through their meat grinder and come out with a decision that's best for them without judgment. I'm not saying I'm good at it. I'm be perfectly honest with you. I'm kind of suck at it, but it's a reminder. And I've been so grateful to our teams who have taught me the whole peace begins with me, and kind of a self-reminder that my decision is my husband and my decision about what to do with Hannah and Olivia is unique to us. And we want to be given grace, and I need to be willing to extend that grace to other people.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, that is what it's about. I know we have the peace begins in my house. When things get a little intense, we stop and we say love and kindness. Love and kindness. It's more for me than my kids, because then it makes me remember to be loving and kind.
So with that said, can you say love and kindness to me and be my accountability partner when I start becoming a little too judgy?
I certainly can. I think I am some days, a little bit at times.
You are. That's why I love you.
Yeah. And then all I want is a play date soon.
All right. So we'll consider it sometime after June 1st. And should it be a go, we'll let the kids come and jump in the pool and have a good time while you and I pour a cocktail.
Lovely. June 1st can't come soon enough.
Amen, sister. Thanks for the conversation.
Yeah. Thanks, Nicole. That was fun.